Everybody, Alex Newman here with the New American. Welcome to another episode of Conversations That Matter. We have a very special guest today. His name is Representative Brad Tschida. He serves in the Montana Legislature. He has served as House Majority Leader, and now he is running for State Senate to represent an even larger district. And he does some phenomenal work. He just has been a great friend of liberty in the state of Montana. Brad, thank you so much for being with us. It's great to have you on the program.
Well, Alex, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be on with you.
It's wonderful to have you back. Thank you so much. And Brad, one of the first things I wanted to talk about, you're I think what is the true definition of a statesman. You did something, you saw that everything wasn't correct, and then you had the courage to actually walk it back. Which a lot of politicians will double down or triple down, but you did not do that. You introduced the Convention of States bill in the Montana legislature, and after realizing that there were some concerns, you actually walked it back. Tell us about that whole ordeal.
Well, the term ordeal, I think, adequately describes it. That was in 2017, my sophomore session. And some folks had approached me, and I had not done my homework. And they asked me to carry the Convention of States bill. And it was one of those bills that you carry, but they come back to bite you because you have not done your homework, have not done enough exploratory assessment or evaluation, even though you're old enough to know better. And I certainly was. I was, I think, 62 at the time, and I figured I knew enough about it to be behind it. And as I took a look at it, I had not done enough homework. So I introduced the bill. It went through its first reading. We went down to committee. And I walked into the committee after having spent probably a week talking to people and doing my assessment evaluation, which should have been done much earlier, obviously. And I stepped to the podium and told folks I could not, in good conscience, carry the bill and support it. So I was in a room of people who were supportive of the COS and immediately became hostile to me, not openly aggressive and hostile, but hostile because they had been abandoned. And I think I deserved whatever disdain came from them because I should have told them up front that I was not going to carry the bill. And I waited intentionally in that room while the proponents, opponents, and informational witnesses spoke so that if anyone wanted to come up to me and tell me what they thought of me or of my abandoning them, that I would be there. And it was, I don't know that it was courageous, but it just felt like the right thing to do. So I simply stepped back from that bill and it wound up dying in committee. And I was happy that it did because for a number of reasons that you've explained in videos and others with whom I've been speaking or from whom I've been reading have been telling me an awful lot of things about the COS that are just suspect. So
Yeah. Well, thank you, Brad. And actually, I think in the second segment after the break, we'd like to air some of your remarks in the legislature when that happened. We've got a little 3-minute clip that's just fantastic. But what are some of your concerns with the Convention of States idea? I mean, we're being told that this is a way to rein in the federal government, and I think there's very few people in Montana or even in most of the what they call flyover country that would disagree on the need to rein in the federal government. But what made you think that maybe this wasn't the best way to do that?
well, as I said, after conducting my research, and I think what we're going to do is change our family crest, perhaps, because it's currently ready, fire, aim, and we're trying to do things now that's reverse the order of the last two. What I found out were, number one, why are they paying certain people to support the Convention of States? I mean, you see people like Mark Levin who are receiving monies for providing their support. And I have great respect for Mark Levin. I mean, he obviously has ascended to a level where most people only dream of being recognized publicly. And there are others who have supported it. But what I found out was that, and I think you alluded to this at some point in time. I think I saw a video that you had done. And I've told people this for several years now. How do we expect a national now I'm going to call them leader team, but elected members of the House and Senate to follow a new amendment to the Constitution if they're not currently following what the Constitution asks of them to do? So I really see that there's a difficulty getting people to change their minds, especially when they see no pain or no penalty for continuing to conduct themselves the way they have been. And then some of the proponents of the COS early on, as my research indicated, was that there were a lot of liberals who were trying to use that approach to get folks to sign on to it, and they found that that wasn't working. So what do? You change strategy, you change course, and you find a new target audience, and that new target audience has become conservatives, because it sounds like such a great measure. I mean, we want to rein in federal government. We want to curtail their spending. We don't want them acting outside their constitutional responsibilities. But the bottom line is they continue to do that. So while we're all in favor of doing that, and I don't know anybody, no matter where they stand on the COS, nobody wants to see the federal government continue its trajectory. But what we're seeing now is that people are saying, it's almost like when somebody's drowning. One of the things they tell you is don't try to fight to pull them up. If they're trying to pull you down, push them down, because that way they'll say, I've got to fight to get back up. So we have to kind of request or advise people to do the same research that you've been doing and that I've started to do, that buddies of mine like Teresa Manzella have been doing for a long time, saying, wait a minute, this is not a good measure. So, and then the coup de grace of all of this is, why would George Soros be behind this and be financing or funding this? Because everything he does is to the detriment of America. So as far as I'm concerned, anything he has his hands in is something that I want to maintain a great distance from.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of people share those concerns about George Soros. And for those out there who aren't aware, who maybe haven't seen some of this research, George Soros has been very active in funding a number of groups that are supporting this use of the Article 5 Constitutional Convention as a way of changing the Constitution. These are radical left-wing groups, people like the guys at Wolfpack, the Young Turks. Interesting name they chose there. And also, you mentioned Senator Manzella, a wonderful lady. We've had her on the program here many times, and she actually has she sent a certified letter to Mark Meckler of the Convention of States saying, hey, why don't you come up here? We'll set up a debate in the legislature, and you can discuss with Robert Brown the different angles of this whole debate. And as far as I know, he has not yet responded. He has an open invitation on any of my programs as well. We've invited him repeatedly, but he has not come on. We did just have Congressman Andy Biggs come on the New American with my colleague Christian Gomez, and he explained something that I think is critical that people are not understanding, and that is that Congress is the one that's going to call the convention, and that means, of course, Congress is going to decide how delegates are selected and all the rest of it. What do you think, Brad? Can we trust the current Congress, or even a Congress, say hypothetically, the 22 election goes to Republicans? Can we trust them with putting together this kind of convention?
It's hard to really assess what my feelings are about the federal electorate, because I don't know a lot of them personally. If they were all like Matt Rosendale, I'd have no problem with it, because Matt has been a stalwart conservative. I mean, I have a great personal relationship with Matt. I can get on the phone and talk to him almost any time. And when Matt says I'm going to do something, he does it. And he's proven that throughout his career, both in state politics and now at the national level. But I look at people who are fair weather conservatives. When it's popular to jump on the bandwagon, they do that. I can't remember what the exact quote was, but it talked about, when an initial group of people become patriotic, they're standing up against fire from both sides. But when patriotism becomes popular, then everybody hops on board, and that's oftentimes what we see. We see political figures who poll test everything and say, is this the right thing to do? Do the polls tell me that I should be doing it or not? And as far as I'm concerned, it's not real difficult. Look at what the Constitution tells you to do. Look at what your conscience tells you to do. Ask your constituents what they think you ought to do, and then do those kind of things. And don't be a person who measures their response based upon what they think is politically expedient for themselves, or what they think might gain them the most traction. I've tried to the best of my ability while I've been in the legislature to make decisions that are going to benefit people in the state of Montana. So if you've got federal electorate that are going to be calling a convention, obviously I know in the Senate there's 50 of them that I have very little likelihood I trust. And there's probably another 30 on the other side in the Republican caucus that I have some questions about. Maybe 20, but there's still a significant number. So the majority of the people there, I don't know that I have that great a trust in what they would wind up doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head there with, you just described perfectly, I think, the difference between a politician and a statesman. A statesman stands on principle. A statesman stands on the Constitution, not, oh, well, 51% of the people think this today, so I guess I'll do that. So God bless you, Brad. We're going to go to a break in just a moment. When we get back, I want to talk about some of the solutions that are out there for the states to be able to work on reining in the federal government, and also we'll air that clip of you speaking on the floor of the legislature there in Montana.
All right, we're ready to open the hearing on House Joint Resolution 8, brought to us by Representative Tschida.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Brad Tschida, TSCHIDA, representing House District 97, which is West Missoula and the community of Lolo. My plan this morning was to bring a solid defense of HJ 8 to you all. But after some reflection the last week or so and some new information that came to my attention, I realized that I had brought a number 2 Phillips screwdriver to a job where I needed a jackhammer. And I guess we can always do one of 2 things in these situations. We can staunchly defend why we took the position we did, even though we know it's wrong, and try to make a solid argument out of it. Or we can admit that we were wrong or used the wrong tool, had the wrong tool to try to address a matter. A resolution of states under Article 5 is not necessarily meant to change the behaviors of individuals that we know are inappropriate, or at least we believe to be inappropriate. It's actually meant, Article 5 is meant to correct deficiencies and errors in the Constitution. So if we attempt to correct a problem with the wrong tool, we wind up probably creating additional problems. So I have a practice in my family, and I try not to employ it all that often, called ready, fire, aim. And we do that on a number of occasions, and so I try to avoid that at all possible, if at all possible. This was not one of those cases. I walked right into the middle of something that I should have done a much better job of researching beforehand, but thinking that it would be an opportunity to keep alive something that would serve a tremendous purpose, I agreed to bring HJ 8 to this body, and I should not have done so. So what I am going to do is ask this group to vote against that particular resolution, because I think that there are more effective ways to curb a problem in Washington, D.C. than using this measure. One of the arguments that was used in opposition to any kind of measure to change the political scene in Washington, D.C. is that if you have a group of individuals who aren't following the current law anyway, what good does it do us to add one more law that they're going to ignore? And if we have the wrong process to bring a law that's going to potentially be ignored or may result in a negative action or a negative outcome, why do we do that? So, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I would ask that HJ 8 either be tabled or that if you do bring it up under a motion to do pass, that it not be passed in this committee. Mr. Chair.
All right, folks, some powerful words there. Brad, a lot of people say, well, okay, if you don't want to do the Convention of States, well, what do you want to do? Obviously, I think we all agree there's a real problem right now. What are some of the tools available to state legislatures and state legislators to try to deal with some of these unconstitutional usurpations coming out of Washington, D.C.?
Well, obviously, we have nullification is one of the first things that we can use at the state level. We can just, we're going through that right now. We had 3 federal judges that want to draw district lines for our public service commissioners, and we could not get a sufficient number of our caucus. We only got 50 out of 67 members to sign on to a letter that would say we would limit our a special session to a single issue, and that would be drawing the PSC district lines. And we couldn't get, there were 17 folks who are, call them transpartisan, migratory Republican, whatever you want to call them. They wouldn't agree to participate. So we couldn't get enough momentum behind us to have a special session called. So unfortunately, we're going to leave it in the hands. We abdicated authority to federal judges. So we need to, as legislators, realize that we are probably the weakest body in the state, in the 3 branches of state government, and we need to exert power. We need to get on an exercise program that lifts us up and provides strengthening of who we are as a member of that 3-legged stool of state government.
Yeah, and actually,
So
that's exactly what the founder said, that the legislative branch needs to be the strongest of the three. They're the ones who are making the laws. So,
absolutely, and the other thing we need to do is concentrate on what's best for the people in the state of Montana. And I'm going to interject this: when I first ran in 2014, I came across something that's kind of become a mantra for me, and that was the difference between a politician and a public servant. And it said a politician is looking ahead to the next election, and a public servant is looking ahead to the next generation. And so my focus has been on the next generation. I don't need to have another addition to my resume. People aren't going to say, okay, we're going to hire you for a job. I'm 68 years old. They're not going to hire me and go, okay, have you served in the legislature? Good. That's going to determine whether we hire you or not. So I went into this thinking that I wanted to make life to the best degree possible in Montana better for my kids and grandchildren, and for those of everybody else that I represent, not just the people in my House district, but across the state, because the decisions that we make as individual legislators don't just affect a particular part of the state; they affect the entire state, and so that's our job.
yeah, absolutely. And Brad, one of the issues that you worked on, I think in the last session, was the out of control big tech companies censoring and silencing and canceling people whose views they disagree with, conservatives, Christians. Talk a little bit about that and how you see a role for state governments in trying to rein some of that in.
Well, I think we have an awful lot of power at the state level to be able to look at those big tech corporations and say, no, you can't do that in our state. And we worked with a gentleman who's not an attorney, but a very brilliant guy out of Arizona. And Marty put together a real interesting plan of attack. Unfortunately, we had 48 or 49 of our 67 Republican electorate who voted for the measure. So of the three members or other two members in Missoula, because there's three elected members from Missoula have an R after their name. The other two, one of them voted for it and the other one voted against it. And I think the one that voted against it was following the cues of somebody that they shouldn't have been. So we need to look at what is good for our citizens, and tech censorship is absolutely not good, because they are putting their foot on the scale for one side of the electorate, that being the liberals, and saying, conservatives, you don't have a place here. Your voice is not important enough for us to hear you. So they're censoring us. So we need to get I'm going to bring that bill back, presuming I'm elected to Senate District 49. I'm going to bring that bill back and run it again and see what kind of luck we have.
Fantastic. Yeah, actually, just yesterday I was talking to Dr. Robert Malone, who broke the internet when he went on Joe Rogan's podcast. He said this is so dangerous to have, big tech companies in Silicon Valley deciding what we can discuss and share and learn about medicine, about science. I mean, lives can literally be put at risk when you're silencing an entire side in a debate. It's just unbelievable. Brad, so you are running for Senate in District 49. Tell us, why do you want to be in the Senate, and how can people get involved if they want to support you?
Well, I feel like there's still work to be done, and at the end of this Senate campaign, presuming that I'm elected, I will have served 12 years, and I think that that's enough for me. But there's still things that we need to do, and having a Republican governor and having hopefully a strong majority of conservatives, more than 51 in the House and at least 26 in the Senate, will be able to enact legislation that we couldn't do before. So. That's principally why I'm running. I still think I have a purpose to serve, some good work still in front of me, the energy to do it, and the ability to affect changes. And if we can get a conservative majority in both the House and Senate, we'll do some good work with Governor Gianforte in the governor's office. So if folks want to find me, the easiest way is to go to Tschida4montana.com. And so, I have one of those very difficult last names, 4 consonants, TSCHIDA. The word for Montana.com, and they can find information about me there. And if they want to contribute to my campaign, I would gladly take whatever support I could get, because again, it's at the end of the day, while it's unfortunate it takes money to run political campaigns, it does. And I've heard that the Democrats are thinking about throwing $100,000 into this race. So for a state Senate seat, it's ridiculous.
Wow, unbelievable. Well, Brad, I can't tell you how much we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your insights with us, and good luck on your Senate campaign. Hopefully we'll catch up with you again very soon.
Excellent. God bless you. Thanks, Alex.
God bless you too. All right, folks, that was Representative Brad Tschida running for Senate in Montana. Big friend of liberty up there, and a true public servant, a true statesman. I'm Alex Newman. This is Conversations That Matter. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, God bless you all.